how could God move my heart for this? Only but because they're one of our ones. Only things. And I just thought, man, this is a precious moment, God, that you're working in my life, not just in theirs. There's something sacred about it. Really is.
Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to the Intentional Churches podcast, which gives practical wisdom and insight into leading your church and aligning to the Great Commission. We've got a great episode in store for you today, but before we jump in, I just want to invite you to consider attending the Intentional Churches conference with your entire staff team next April. At IC, we believe that the Great Commission should be a personal mission statement for everyone in your church, and this is the heart behind the Intentional Churches conference. So the conference is priced lower than many other church leadership conferences and is designed with your whole team in mind. And the conference is conveniently located this year in the Midwest. And so visit intentionalchurches.com/podcast for all the details and to register. But like I said, we've got a great episode today. And as usual, I'm joined by my good friend, Doug Parks. What's up, Doug?
How's it going, Erin?
Good to be with you. And we have another friend with us today named Mark Weigt. Hello, Mark.
Hello, good to be with you both. And Doug, a fellow Steeler fan, good to be with you as well.
Go Steelers! Yes,
Oh, my goodness.
Maybe the hope springs eternal every year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the Steelers. That's my personal choice, but maybe I'm glad you guys
3 minutes at the end if we do well.
Sure,
Aaron,
sure,
I thought Aaron, I was told this podcast was going to be about. I feel
the
a little
Steelers.
deceived.
Yeah,
I feel deceived, but okay.
You've been
whatever
misled.
you want to talk about.
Well, this is season 6 of the podcast, which is super exciting. And today we kind of wanted to have a conversation about preparing for the moments where there's kind of big invite potential, where our people and our churches are going to be inviting a lot of people. An example of that would be Christmas. Obviously Christmas is big invite potential. Obviously Easter, there's other big events our churches do. But before we jump into that conversation, Mark, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do? Where are you?
Yeah, name is Mark Weigt, as you said. I am the lead and founding pastor of the Ridge Community Church. We just celebrated our 18th birthday. We can vote.
Congrats.
Wow, nice.
And we can vote now. We have 2 locations. We are located in the southwest part of Milwaukee County, which is kind of a unique spot. It was terrible during COVID because we have dark blue and dark red counties that combined, and our locations are right in the middle of the combining of those two. So it was horrible. Married to my wife, Donna. We've been married 28 years and 3 kids.
It's good. And Mark, you and I have been friends for a while. I'm just honored you're on here with us and having a conversation. And for our listeners, many of them probably never been to Milwaukee. I've been to Milwaukee now several times. I never really been there before the last run with Intentional Churches. And I kind of like the city at times in the summer, but I don't want anything to do with it in January or when the Packers are playing. But give our listeners for a minute some context about Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is a very unique environment racially, socioeconomically, politically, in terms of the gospel. And so I really want us to give context for this conversation first by you starting with, tell us about doing ministry in this place called Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, while you refer to it, it's not a vacation destination. It's a great community, and these unique things that you're referring to is really what drew us here. Milwaukee, Southeast Wisconsin in particular, is considered the Midwest. But it is unlike any other part of the Midwest. And what I mean by that, Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio, those states, you see big booming churches all over the place. You come into Southeast Wisconsin in particular, but Southeast Wisconsin, and it completely changes. There have been a lot of church growth trends, studies that have been done, different states. Wisconsin rivals the New England area as far as church growth. And so it's very unique in that way. Some other unique aspects of it, it was considered the graveyard of church planting. It had the highest failure rate of new churches in the country at one point. I don't know if that's still the case. It is the most racially segregated community. It is number 4 in poverty. And one of the fun parts I have is I'll meet new pastors that are from different areas like California, Arizona and stuff. And they'll move up here and are doing church. And I'll say, so what do you think? And they'll go, oh man, is it tough to grow a church up here. And that is Southeast Wisconsin. No Bible Belt influence whatsoever. And it's wide open.
I'm sorry to just tell me why. What's your take after living there for so long? Why is it like that?
Yeah, I've been asked that a lot. I honestly, I don't know. I really don't. It is, and Milwaukee County in particular, we could feel our first location, our portable location. We were in what's called Waukesha County. It's the county next to Milwaukee County, and then we moved into Milwaukee County for our second portable location. And I tell you what, it was night and day, man. I mean, it was just spiritually. Our staff was like, man, it just feels really dark. And sure enough, I think 88, I think it's 90% or higher now that don't attend church in this area, and so it's rapidly falling for sure. But I don't know the answer to that. I really don't.
Tough, man.
That's so fascinating. Mark, maybe give us some context for the Ridge Community Church. Like, what's the vision you have landed on? How did you get to this place? Just give us some context.
Yeah, our vision, we have a vision statement that we say all the time. It's to bring the hope of Jesus into every home, and our focus is Southeast Wisconsin. And the way that we do that is we kind of look at it as this focus. We want to focus on the least, the lost, and the local church. And so like the 3 L's. And the least and the lost are kind of self-explanatory. But the local church aspect, because of the segregation here, we have this mantra, at least I do in my mind, that a fractured family produces fractured results. And so if we can begin to create this network of collaborating churches in this area around the Great Commission, we believe that we can change some of those statistics or some of those things that I just talked about earlier. So we have a big focus on creating networks of like-minded churches as a part of that, are focused on the Great Commission. Along with our vision, we've actually have a vision goal that's focused around year one, that our church is aggressively pursuing, and it's to help 5,000 people find Jesus by the end of 2030. And so it's all year one focus, personalizing the Great Commission. And so it's just been a lot of fun to see that take off since we've launched that and put together the plan for that.
So, especially in your context, I think it's really interesting to talk about this idea of, a big invite weekend or a big invite potential Sunday or whatever. So how have you traditionally thought about, a big invite to church opportunities like a Christmas or something like that? How have you thought about that? And are there other big calendar times when you're thinking about your people making big invites?
Yeah. Wait, Mark, let me... Spoiler alert, everybody. We're recording right before Christmas, but we're going to talk about other potential big invites moments. Is it okay that I broke the fourth wall? Did I get the fourth wall? Anyway, Mark, please.
Yes. Well, yes, as now you spoiled it. At least where we're located, I can't speak for other places. Christmas has now become the main invite service time for us. It just is. Easter's still okay. Mother's Day is okay. But over the last few years, those have become less and less. And so we go all in for Christmas. I mean, we really do. We start planning our Christmas invite process in the spring. And we have a whole plan that we roll out. Now, if you want to know more about that, I'll tell you more about that. The other things that we've done, Erin, is we've tried to create invite opportunities. That seems to work better for us. And so buzzworthy events, as we call them, I think other churches call them that as well. So like we'll bring a GM from the local, from the NBA team in this area, the Bucks, or we'll do things like that generate large community service outreach things are really, really helpful for us, where we can get, 1,500 people at an event, and we really push our people to invite. So we have been creating those type of things, and we think those work better. At the movies is actually really popular for us. And I say that's popular for a lot of churches, but for us, it's popular in July, where you have 90 days only of good weather. So everybody's bailing in July for church. But at the movies for us, we grow. And so those would be the big ones. For Christmas for us, we just said, okay, it's still culturally acceptable. So here's what we do. And here's kind of our calendar of stuff and how we plan it. We start in the spring. And what we do is before the summer, we do some sort of Your One series. And it's short, and it's maybe 2 to 3 weeks. And then what we do is we release some training videos Your One training videos to help our people as they want to take the next steps in that. And then in the summer, we push everybody's outside, block parties, fire pits, you name it, be outside as much as possible. And we try to track that as much as possible. And then we push them to the fall to either invite to a service or to an alpha type thing, or to one of our larger scale community outreach things like I talked about just a little bit. And Halloween is huge for us. And so we wrap all that around, but everything, including our community events, are inviting people to Christmas. And that's what we're doing. And so, like I said, we go all in for Christmas. That's the main one for us.
I love, Mark, that I want our listeners to really hear this point, that although you're talking about some programmatic event things that institution of the church might be doing, Christmas Eve services or a buzzworthy event or whatever, what you're actually doing is you're challenging and casting vision for people to individually be inviting ones into their life before they're ever inviting them into church. And that whatever point the Spirit works and the church's thing is the right invite is great. But I love that you're backing up strategies that are really, I like to refer to 1 Corinthians 3:6, getting your people planting and watering in relationships. So just loving the highlight there, man.
Well, that's why the summer, I mean, for us, where we're located, the summer is so huge because in the winter, no one's going outside. And so, we just, like I said, we start in the spring and we just, hey, maximize the summer. You don't have to come here. It's fine. Do this, throw parties, all that stuff. And we track parties and all that stuff. I mean, we do all that. Those are wins for us. They don't have to be here, but that we see movement. We're happy with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask you kind of what you hope people in your church are doing with their ones leading up to a big invite weekend like Christmas. But you kind of already answered that question. Is there anything else that you hope people are doing or that you're encouraging people to do when it comes to their ones in preparation for a big invite weekend?
Yeah. So, I refer to some of our community service stuff that we do we're really known for in this area. And so we strategically plan those end of November, early December. And while it puts a lot of horsepower behind our church, the people that attend our church, we always go, okay, this is a year one invite. And so we strategically plan those. And so we have to fill all these serving things as a part of it. And so we intentionally make them a ton more than what our church size is. And so we're like, you got to fill them with your ones, And then we have a bunch of Christmas invite stuff as a part that goes along with that. We call them bridgebacks. And so we'll encourage our people, invite them here, or we have alpha type things that we invite them to leading up to Christmas. And hopefully, once again, that'll connect the dots as they make the ask leading into Christmas. And then for us, all of December, we talk about year one and invite. And we have a whole plan in all our services. We call them vision moments. And we'll spend 4 or 5 minutes a service just talking about Christmas. The first one is the why. The second one's here's what the kids is going to look like because we know the families are huge. And then the last one is let's give you some how-tos. And then we pray together as a church with that.
Yeah, Mark, for some of our listeners, they may not know Alpha or know it just kind of cursory. So tell us a little more, because it is a program that's out there that you can kind of invest in off the shelf. Why Alpha? Why is that in your strategy mix?
We wrestled with this, Doug, for a while, and we've tried some others. What I like, well, first off, Alpha is, I think Alpha does the best job of engaging people intellectually and experientially. I think it does. I think it's got a great balance of that. I think since Alpha it's made a bunch of changes. It then is great. It's shortened the videos, and then the discussion stuff is so much better. And when I say the discussion stuff, it's just easy to train people to lead discussions in Alpha, and they've just made it so simple, and anyone can do it. So when I talk about we invite people to Alphas, we do maybe 1 or 2 Alphas at the church. All the other ones are offsite, and we've set goals actually for people we want to see go through Alpha every year at our offsite locations. And so we just found that for us here, we just see Alpha produce a lot of fruit for those reasons.
I love all of the just intentionality about the ways you're inviting your people to engage their ones prior to Christmas or other big invite weekends. Mark, one of the things that is, I know, important to intentional churches is this idea that leaders go first in terms of personalizing the Great Commission, that leaders have to be engaging in their own relationships with people close to them but far from God, their own ones. And so we thought it'd be fun if you would just tell us a story about a one in your own life right now.
I agree with you. I mean, we set the bar. I set the bar for the Ridge. If we have a church that loves lost people, that's got to start with me. We have my wife Donna and I. We have a sports bar that we frequent most Friday nights.
What?
I know.
Yes.
Probably for you guys, Doug. It's going to be a little out of the box there. I know. But anyways, we have just for the record, Doug has been there. Okay, Doug has been there.
Yes, I have.
So we go every Friday night, and we've done this ever since we moved here. We'll pick a spot and we just live there for 5 years or so. And we just get to know everybody and we get to know all the customers, and we go there every Friday to connect with each other and connect with others. And it's great. We love it. There's one couple in particular, Brian and Rose, far from God. That dude drinks more than anyone I've ever met. And I've met a lot of drinkers, and his wife, same thing. And we've just gotten really close to them. Now they're inviting us to stuff. They're asking us to come over. They're texting us with things and all that stuff. And we just now are finally now they're starting to become open. In fact, our hope is that they'll be at one of our Christmas Eve services this year. That's what we're praying for.
Yeah, I just want to say for our listeners, like this, when you get engaged truly on mission, owning the Great Commission, they're living all kinds of life and coping all different kinds of ways. And so I know we want to chuckle about, but this is the reality, like, and so, but I'm curious, as the relationship has built and they are now actually inviting you to something, what kind of things are you getting invited to?
They have one daughter, and she is marrying someone from another country. And so they had this wedding at the other country, but then they had a ceremony here. And so they were like, hey, would you guys be willing to come after the ceremony? We're having this big party with everybody, and we'd love for you guys to be there. And so they invited us to that. And they've invited us to some other things, family things, some similar things like that. So it's been kind of cool to watch that.
That's awesome, man. I'll tell you, I know this is probably not a good thing to admit on a recording and to go public, but I've married so many of my ones, like done the ceremony for, one of my neighbors in my old neighborhood, getting to marry him and his wife. And it's just fascinating when you become in our role, because we work for the church, you all of a sudden become the preacher when you're engaged, or the reverend when you're engaging with ones. But my most famous, unfortunately, they got divorced, but they went on the Dr. Phil show as part of their last stand and try to stay married. So I probably should have done a lot more premarital counseling before that. But anyway, sorry to sidetrack us. But I've got some wild stories because I've been so engaged in ones in the Las Vegas Valley. A lot of times they engage. Anyway, we can tell stories later.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the fun. When we talk about giving people a heart or helping them tap into the heart of God, we'll say things like this. We'll say, the fruit of the Spirit and all the different aspects of the fruit of the Spirit, you can't pray those in, but man, God really builds them into your heart more than any other place than when you're investing in your one. There's just something about that I think taps us into God's heart. And then all of a sudden where it exposes a lot about our heart, where it is, and is there alignment there and all that stuff. And so we really push a main part of spiritually growing is this process right here.
Oh, yeah. I believe it. That's why, even though some of what we're talking about may even be offensive to some of our listeners, but when you engage with ones at this level, like you're saying, Mark, you get pushed with dilemmas about, if you were just living in Christian world where it's us, them, you would be like, oh, can I even marry them? Well, I've got relational trust enough. I'm getting to speak into a couple that, eventually, I didn't speak well enough, but
no, there is something about, like for me, I don't naturally serve people well. It's just not my wife. She's great. She's always like, hey, so one of our neighbors who's just far from God as all get out, doctor, all this stuff. Well, they have this pug that just drives me nuts and drove me nuts for about 10 years. And they know I can't stand the pug and I make fun of it all the time. Well, anyways, his wife was backing out, didn't know the dog was there, snapped the jaw. Okay. No, I know there was blood all over the cement. They took the dog to the vet. My wife runs in and she goes, there is Jabba, that's his name, the pug. There is his blood all over the porch. We need to clean it off for them so they don't see that when we go in. I'm going, I ain't going out there to do that. No way. And she goes, hey, that shows them who Jesus is when we do that. And I was like, oh, crap, Donna, and sure enough, man, they're scraping that dog. Well, I can't stand and all that stuff. And I thought, man, how could God move my heart for this? Only but because they're one of our ones. Only things. And I just thought, man, this is a precious moment, God, that you're working in my life, not just in theirs. There's something sacred about it. It really is.
I would love to kind of turn the corner just to some practical things. As you think about a season prepping for a big invite weekend, how do you use a season like this to move your staff, your elder board, I'm not sure how your leadership team is structured, people like that into greater alignment towards personal ownership of the Great Commission? Like, how are you using a season like this to kind of capitalize on radical alignment?
Yeah. And I think for us, we take that seriously as far as we're going to go as far as our board and our staff will go. So we're intentional about that, Erin. So around early December, what we'll do is we'll have a staff meeting, and that's all we'll talk about, that entire staff meeting. And we'll talk about, and we'll say, hey, and Craig Rochelle does a great job of this. He talks about, you're a follower of Jesus first, staff person second. And so we say, hey, put off your staff person hat for a minute. And you're a follower of Jesus, and we know what God's heart is. And then we'll just talk your one stuff, and we'll do some training. We'll have some cards there. Who are you investing in? Who are you inviting to Christmas Eve? Who are we going to pray for? And then as a staff, we take half hour or so, and together we just pray for those invites. Our board meeting before that's what we'll talk about. And then, as I said, as a church, then overall, that's the third layer. In December, all of our vision moments are just wrapped around that. And then we're just unashamed to just talk about it for those 5 or 6 minutes of the service.
You may have more that you want to share, Mark, but I'm just curious. When you first started doing that, you may not be able to remember, but what percentage actually had ones compared to now that you've been repetitively?
Yeah, that was hard for me. Yeah, that was when we first did that. That was hard for me. I was really surprised because here's someone who I thought prided himself on, reaching lost people and church that reaches lost people. And then when we first did it, it was like half. And I was like, oh, it was like a sock in the gut. And I just remember leaving a little bit defeated. And now fast forward years later, we just kept at it and we added some things. So we do staff wins like many staffs do. Personal your one things are now a staff win for us. And that's really helped us. And a couple of times we've said, okay, here's the only staff wins we're going to share. Your one wins. We actually took a month of that in the summer because that's the best time. And we just said it, man, the first one, it was crickets. It was just crickets. And then, this year we did it. It was awesome. You just saw just such great movement with it and all that stuff. It was cool to see. Are we there yet? No, but we're a lot farther than we were before.
Well, for our listeners, I just want to encourage them. If you haven't created this kind of culture, that's really, really basic blocking and tackling of ministry, don't get discouraged. Listen to what Mark's saying. Just start repetitively leading out like example and making sure it's a priority. And we've seen over time, again and again, in just a lot of these interviews that we've done, how that consistency brings awareness and intent to people, not maybe righteous shame in the beginning, but then not shame and guilt and that kind of thing. So it's just encouraging.
And if you're a leader, if you're the lead pastor, let's just say on your team, I think you've got to share those stories, especially with your staff, and share the failures. Those they resonate with the most. And you got to do that. Once again, you set the culture. So that's got to start with you and come from you.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask you just any practical insight or advice you would give to our listeners. I wonder, Mark, is there anything else you would say to somebody that really desires radical alignment and is heading into a season with a big invite coming? Is there any other practical insight you would offer to just say you should start here or make sure you do this thing?
Yeah, I would say this: identify and be honest with what are those key windows, and they're small now. Okay, so we know they're small, but what are they? And then get your team together and go, let's put together a strategy that's going to align everybody around this. And that means you got to say no to some things leading up to that season. And then set a goal. This is what we do. We set a goal for not only how many we want to see come, but for us, let's just say with Christmas, our win is the be back. Because you can have great Christmas numbers. That's fine. That's great. But we want to see the be back. And so we're very intentional even about the programming of Christmas and all that stuff. So identify what that is, that whether that it's Christmas or something else, back out of it with a plan, and then set a goal. You set the goal first, and then back out of it with a plan, and then get the right people on board, and then just align around that plan. If there's things that take away from it, get rid of it for that season and do it, because our growth opportunities are so short and small now that we got to go all in on these times. You really do. And have fun with it. Have fun with it.
That's awesome. Mark, thank you so much for just sharing some of your context, which is so fascinating. I feel like I could ask you 100 more questions about your context, but thanks for just sharing insight, and just grateful for you, your leadership, and the ways that you're just inviting people to come alive in Jesus.
Well, let me say these two things. One, Erin, if Drew's not treating you right, Milwaukee is a great area to live. Okay,
so it's hilarious.
No, it's not.
It's a great area to live. It is, man. So it is a great area. And let me say this: IC has been huge for us. You guys, I mean, we wouldn't be doing these things without you guys. So we're beyond appreciative of all you guys have invested in us. We really are.
Thank you. No, and I don't think Erin's going to give us 3 minutes on the Steelers, but thank you, Mark.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
You've been the most supportive and a great friend, man. Great ministry.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys.
Of course. And to our listeners, thanks for listening to the Intentional Churches podcast. Just remember that the Intentional Churches conference is next April, and it is designed for your whole team. So make sure you visit intentionalchurches.com/podcast for all the details and to register there. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.